watching the Prep Rally Podcast.
Welcome to the Prep Rally Podcast, sponsored by West Termite and Lawn. Today is the Thanksgiving and state playoff semifinal edition of the Prep Rally Podcast. Our fearless leader, Graham Thomas, is in Mississippi enjoying this Thanksgiving holiday with his family. So, Rick, they had to go to the bullpen today. Do you think we can handle it?
Absolutely, man. The gruesome twosome, we've done this before. We'll probably mess it up a little bit, but we'll get through it.
Well, and of course, this is the Thanksgiving edition. Thanksgiving is Thursday. Rick, it looks like you're already ready for it. Tell me, Thursday, when you get ready and you go get your plate and you see that whole just buffet of Thanksgiving food, what's your number one go-to item on Thanksgiving?
And this might be two separate things, but on my plate, it's the same thing. It's stuffings with mashed potatoes and that yellow gravy. And my mashed potatoes cannot have any lumps in it. I think I've started fights before Thanksgiving because my mom, when I was a kid, she babied me and didn't put any lumps. Then my aunt had them big old lumps in there. I was like, I don't want that. And then my mom would always make the mashed potatoes and gravy just for Ricky. So that's stuffing, mashed potatoes, and about any kind of meat. How about you?
Well, I like the great big gigantic chunks of white turkey meat, but I do have, and I guess people think this is odd, but I have to have ketchup with my turkey.
What?
Yeah, ketchup. I mean, it's meat. So I have to have, ketchup with my meat. I think my wife, Jennifer's family, has finally accepted me. The first time we had Thanksgiving, and I said, "Hey, do you have any ketchup?" They all looked at me and said, "What do you need ketchup for?" So anyway, that's kind of a, confession of mine, but I like,
Well,
my turkey and ketchup.
you put ketchup on a steak?
No, that's usually I don't have anything with the steak, but if I do, it might be some A1.
Okay, I saw a kid do that one time, and I walked out. I couldn't watch it. All right,
Well,
well,
I
let's go
think that's
ahead.
an insult to the cook too, isn't it?
I think so, absolutely.
So anyway, we're going to get into the River Valley Gimme Five. These are the top five performances of the last week in the River Valley. Of course, we always start with the River Valley Democrat Player of the Week. Kane Archer, junior quarterback for Greenwood, in a 48-0 win over El Dorado on Friday night in the second round of the Class 6A state playoffs. Archer completed his first 9 passes of the game. He was 14 of 15 for 317 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first half.
Wow.
And he finished 18 of 20 for 379 yards to lead Greenwood into their 24th semifinal appearance coming up on Friday night and their 10th straight. That now gives Archer 49 touchdown passes for the year against 46 incomplete passes. And
Oh,
of
my
course, that
goodness.
was Greenwood's 69th straight win at home. It put Archer over 3,000 yards passing for the season, put the Greenwood Bulldogs over 5,000 yards of offense for the season, and also over 600 points for the season. And of course, the big two receivers for Greenwood, of course, Champ Davis had 8 catches for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Grant Carnes had 7 catches for 155 yards and 3 touchdowns, and both of them went over 1,000 yards receiving for the season. And they may get 2 more games to add to it. Number 2, Andrew Burton of Mansfield, the fullback, rushed 25 times for 198 yards and 4 touchdowns in Mansfield's 34-14 win over Newport on Friday night in the Class 3A state playoffs. That puts Andrew Burton over 1,000 yards for the year. He got plenty of help, of course, from Samuel Burton. 14 carries for 114 yards and a touchdown for his second straight 100-yard rushing game in the playoffs.
Wow.
Number 3, Hunter Warren of Boonville, a Bulling fullback for the Bearcats, had 32 carries for 214 yards and 4 touchdowns as Boonville slipped by Mayflower 35-13, also in the Class 3A state playoffs. Boonville had 316 yards rushing for the game. And number 4, in a losing cause, Cameron Keller of Van Buren, in a loss at Shiloh Christian on Friday night in the second round of the Class 6A state playoffs. Keller had 16 carries for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he went over the 3,000-yard mark. And, of course, he was already Van Buren's all-time leading rusher on his final carry of his high school career, a 57-yard touchdown run. Number 5, Josiah Posey of Pecola completed 28 of 48 passes for 429 yards and 3 touchdowns in Pecola's loss at Hooker on Friday night. That put him over 4,000 yards passing for the season with 39 touchdowns, and he's going to end up leading the state of Oklahoma in passing. And, of course, as you know, like all good quarterbacks, he had plenty of help as well. Braden Hardwick had 11 catches for 156 yards. A.J. Lyons Jarrell had 4 catches for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Lyons Jarrell also threw a 2-point pass and had 2 2-point conversion runs, and he ended up with over 4,000 yards rushing in his career for Pecola. He ended up with over 1,000 yards passing in his career and almost 1,000 yards receiving in his career. So that was the top 5 performances of the last week in the River Valley. And we'll go into the River Valley report now. On Friday night, of course, we had 7 teams from the River Valley playing in the state playoffs in both states on Friday night, but 4 of those, Charleston, Van Buren, Sallisaw, and Pecola, all lost to finish their season, and all 4 of those losses were on the road. Of course, wrestling has started up. It just started last week. Basketball is now, wide open. It's going full bore. And next week, the 2nd through the 7th, there's 3 tournaments in the River Valley at Lavaca, Boonville, and Scranton, with a lot of teams really getting into basketball season in the coming week. And that's going to wrap up the River Valley report for the week. And now we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back. And now to Rick Fires for the Northwest Arkansas Top 5 and the Northwest Arkansas Report, sponsored by West Termite and Lawn. Rick, take it away.
We're recording this prep rally in the middle of the week, but I want to explain to some of the people watching on our video podcast. They say, man, Rick Fires looks weirder than normal. Today, I am the guy who can't wait for Thanksgiving Day guy. The guy that comes out of the deer woods, flops down, expects everything to be perfect, complains about the meat being undercooked, there's no cranberry, lumps and potatoes. He starts arguments about sports and politics, maybe not right at the table, but after you get your belly full, go in there, start watching some NFL football. He's that guy. I've seen it. I'm sure some of you people have seen it. When you see that guy, just lock the door. Don't let him in. But we're going to keep it positive, and we're transitioning to Northwest Arkansas. The player of the week. And I hate to even say this is a losing call, but Rogers did get eliminated by Conway. Conway's very good, but my goodness, Jeff Reagan, he's had a spectacular year. He had another great game. He could have been our player of the week about 5 times this year. Jeff Reagan accounted for 7 touchdowns against Conway, one of the very best teams in the state. As a passer, he completed 16-26, 273 yards, 4 touchdowns. As a runner, get this, carried the ball 25 times, 263 yards, 3 touchdowns against Conway, which had a first-round bye. Now, this reminds me, one of the coaches I was reading said, man, we thought we had him, he just ran away. Now, that's what I used to read in the paper when Matt Jones, I'm not comparing in any way Jeff Regan to Matt Jones. Matt Jones is about 6'6", Jeff Regan's about 5'7". But I always loved that quote where they said, we thought we had him hemmed in, and he got away from us. Jeff Regan is, he is a true run-pass option quarterback. just exceptional. And Leland, what's the record that he set? Can you explain that?
Yeah, he became the first quarterback in state history to rush for over 1,000 yards in a season and pass for over 2,000 yards in a season in the state's largest classification. The list is pretty small anyway in the smaller classifications. He's the only one that's ever done it in the state's largest classification. And of course, he also exceeded 20 touchdowns rushing and 20 touchdowns passing, which is also extremely rare. That's only been done once in the state's largest classification. That was 14 years ago by Kendrick Burns of Northside. And he's also had this game, of course, 200 passing, over 200 rushing, which has also only been done 4 times in the state's largest classification. And this is the first time it's ever been done in the playoffs. So he's only a junior, and he has already just had a phenomenal season and put his name all over these kinds of records.
Hey, and for you young people out there, maybe in junior high or so forth, this kid is not like 6'6" monster type athlete. He's about 5'9", 5'10", maybe 5'11", and of course he's got talent, but man, just a lot of heart and desire. So it doesn't mean how big you are, how small you are. It's just that you take coaching and you have that work ethics. You can't do it like Jeff Regan, but you can do it. So let's move on to Farmington. Farmington, man, I picked this wrong. I thought Camden was come up here and just outrun Farmington. They didn't. Farmington pounded them 42-21. Russell Hodge, another big game like he's had all year for Farmington, which is going to host Hot Springs Lakeside on Friday, semifinal game. But the big number here that for me was Tommy Tice. Tommy Tice is already in the Coaches Hall of Fame, Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame, but he keeps adding to his legacy. He had his 300th career win. You know what? 300 career wins is impressive in basketball, and Tommy Tice is doing it in football. I don't even know how long he's been coaching now, maybe 30-plus years. But, man, I wrote about this before. High school sports is just better when you have legendary coaches like Tommy Tice involved. And he took over a Farmington team. Their coach left, took a private job, and he rallied these kids together, and they've gotten better every week. So hats off to Farmington Cardinals and their coach, Tommy Tice. Let me see, Bentonville. They just got through playing West a couple weeks ago. Bentonville wins that game again. Senior quarterback Trevor Grant had his best game, completing 26 of 36 passes, 315 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So they got some momentum. Trevor Grant's going to have another great game. Conway's coming up here. Conway is just exceptional. Shiloh Christian, they beat Van Buren for the second time. Man, what a showdown against Benton. They got to go down Benton. If you remember, Benton just an outstanding team. So the Saints have their works cut out there. Elkins, they're just rolling. They're going to host Malvern. And right here, I got to add, I'm finally leaving talking about, man, we're in the basketball mode right now. And I got to see a game Monday night. I'm counting that as a weekend. But Springdale basketball beat Maumelle 47-41. Springdale basketball is now 4-0. You know what? These guys are really, really good. Isaiah Seeley, 17 points. They got 6'5" guys, 6'6" guys. But the only thing, I guess because I'm the old cranky guy that shows up for Thanksgiving Day dinner, my negativity here, they were doing a little bit too fancy, a little bit too showboating. Even their coach yelled out, said, just do the layup instead of trying to do one of those fancy finger rolls or alley-oop. But Springdale's really good. Got some new guys. There are new guys all over the place now. But I'm just looking forward to – got to finish football. My mind is on football. Then we get in that basketball. But there's really going to be some good basketball up here. So that's my 5. I think that's 5 for Northwest Arkansas.
Hey, Rick, the Northwest Arkansas Report. Were you down on the field for the PA Fayetteville game?
I was.
When I saw that game, when I saw the stats on it, the thing that really, I'd like to hear a little something about that game from you. But the thing that stood out to me when I think of Pulaski Academy and Fayetteville, I think of high-powered offenses. Neither one of those teams even got to 400 yards of offense on Friday night.
You know what? They have really. I mean, they are impressive. PA is really. There's a reason they've gone from climb up the charts right there as far as classification. They got athletes all over the field, man. And those big defensive linemen, linebackers, D-backs that can run. They really got it going on. And I love watching that quarterback. You know what? Who's the quarterback for PA? You know his name?
Brandon
Yeah.
Brandon Cobb, he's a 2-year starter, and he's put up some big numbers for him.
You know what? And I've never, rarely have I seen a kid make it look so easy. It's like he just flicks his wrist and the ball's going down 20 yards downfield on a rope, and he's got all kind of receivers. Favors are really good, but man, PA, who they got this? Who are they playing?
Well, they have to travel to Bryant. But
Oh,
the thing that's always has stood out to me about the Pulaski Academy quarterbacks is they are mostly pocket type passers. But when you see them drop back, there's no panic. They look at one option, they look at another option, and they pick where they're going, and they are steady and calm, and they don't get happy feet in the pocket. Did you notice that?
Oh, absolutely. He had that little circle around him, and like he just stood there like a statue. I mean, not that he's not immobile, but he didn't have to. He just stood there, and he just flicked that ball, and then receivers run them routes. I bet they do those passing drills like 80 times a day or something, but they are just pristine in how they run and throw the football. It's just they were a fun team to watch. I'm telling you. But Fayetteville was ready for them. They're PA's famous for doing the onside kicks. That didn't. One of them went out of bounds, but Fayetteville recovered the other two, I think. And I said, "Uh-oh, here we go." PA was backed up on its own like 2-3 yard line. I said, "Surely, are they gonna?" 'Cause we always hear that they refuse to punt, but no, they punt. They did punt. They're not going to be, they're not going to, they punt maybe from about, not punt from their 30 or 40, but when you're backed up on the 3, they punted, and they did some pooch kicks too. So they've really got a lot of things going on in PA. I was impressed with PA. Fayetteville just came off an exceptional year last year, undefeated, 7A champions. Had a good year, not a great year, but hats off to Fayetteville for having to turn in another really good year under Casey Dick.
Well, and I noticed PA punted 4 times on Friday night. The last time they punted 4 times in a game, it was probably 10 years ago. And also, I noticed there were 22 penalties combined by both teams in that game.
Yeah, a lot of it was false starts for some reason. I have no idea because I've heard there was a good crowd there, but yeah, there was a lot. Maybe just because of the situation, nerves and jitters and everything. But PA was the better team that night, and they're moving on.
And then Bentonville won the second battle of Benton County this year, 53-28. Like you said, Trevor Grant, 315 yards, 4 touchdowns. Ficklin's a pretty good running back too, 23
Yes.
carries for 191. And the big thing I think about the Rogers Conway game is that Conway got Grayson Wilson, their quarterback, back.
So that's let me say this. Hey, people in Northwest Arkansas, if you want to see good high school football and a guy who's going to play for the Razorbacks in the next couple of years, go out and watch this high school game. Get a quick peek of Grayson Wilson. Stands about 6'3", 200 pounds, and that'd be a double treat for you. You know what? And it don't even cost that much. It's not like going to a Razorback game and you have to stand in line and and the traffic is bad. You can go up there, spend $5-6, go watch a high school football game, and see possibly the future of the Razorback at quarterback.
Well, and he had, of course, he was 17 of 23 passing for 246 and 2 touchdowns, but he also had 9 carries for 85 yards, including a 75-yard touchdown run early in that game. So he's an extremely mobile guy that I think will fit the Razorbacks offense under a Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, they like that run pass option guy. But hey, but whoever gets this other quarterback from PA, I don't know if he's a run pass option, but he can flick that football downfield. So we've got some really impressive high school athletes around here. I hope for the best, but I hope these guys decide to stay in Arkansas and play for Arkansas schools. That's what I like.
So that was the Northwest Arkansas Top 5 and the report brought to you by West Termite and Lawn. And we're going to take another break. And we have some videos. We also have some from the River Valley before, and we have some from Northwest Arkansas this time. And after that, we'll be back with Who You Got.
7 to 9.
Zoom in on the receiver. They're just talking.
7 to 5.
All right, zoom in on
Touchdown.
They're ready.
Touchdown. 2 yards. 2-yard run.
Welcome back to the Prep Rally Podcast. We're in the Who You Got segment, and there's 34 teams. That's all that's left in high school football playing on Friday night. We're going to start with Class 3A for our pick'ems because we keep falling off with teams, but we have 2 left in the River Valley in 3A. So, Rick, Mansfield was looking like they were going to have to go on the road, but instead Dumas upset Glen Rose, and now Mansfield, being the higher of the 2 seeds, gets to stay at home. So Dumas is traveling to Mansfield. What do you think about that game?
You know, that's a long trip for Dumas, kind of south of Pine Bluff. You know what? I'm going to take Mansfield. I picked against them last week, and they showed me. So I'm going to – is it too late? Do you mind, Mansfield, if I jump on the bandwagon this late in the year? I don't care. If you're still moving, I'm still jumping on that bandwagon and hanging on. So I learned my lesson. I'm taking Mansfield.
I think they will definitely make room for you on that bandwagon, Rick.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to take Mansfield too, even though Dumas has won 2 games already on the road in the playoffs. You know, they won at Camden Harmony Grove week 1 of the playoffs. Then they won at Glen Rose. But I think Mansfield at home is just, I think they're a juggernaut, and I just think they're on a mission. Plus, they're a really good football team as well.
And this is a lot longer trip than going to Harmony Grove.
Well, and speaking of long trips, Boonville gets to go to Fordyce on Friday night. How about that game between 2 tradition-rich schools?
I tell you, when you think of Arkansas high school football, you cannot get any better than Boonville and Fordyce. Both tradition-rich. When I worked at the Pine Bluff Commercial, anytime I got an assignment to go to Fordyce on a Friday night, I'd get there early, and downtown they would have little shops and a little drugstore and a restaurant with the little bitty red bugs, picture of the red bugs in the windows. They really get into football down there, as does Boonville. When you're talking high school football, that's it. Both of them are a great team. Fordyce, another good season, but man, I can't go against the Boonville Bearcats. Give me Boonville.
Well, you know, Fordyce is 12-0. They're one of only 2 teams in Class 3A that's left that's undefeated.
Yep.
And there's not very many teams that could go on the road 3 games deep into the playoffs against an undefeated team and win. But I think Boonville is one of those few that can do it, so I'm going to go with Boonville as well.
Okay.
In Class 4A, we lost Prairie Grove last week. We lost Gentry last week, but we're down. We still have one left. Rick, Elkins at home, but man, against Malvern. What do you think about that one?
You know what? I was over there at the practice with Coach Zach Watson. It was cold, but those guys are jumping around. They're so thankful to be playing, still playing. Any team that's playing after Thanksgiving, it's a blessing for them. Malvern, my goodness, Coach Watson talked about the speed, and they got some big old boys on defense. But man, they just have the Elks hadn't been beaten, and man, that's a long trip. So I'm going to give the edge to Elkins. Elkins has got a lot of talent. They just keep loading up with a great athlete. Dizzy Dean comes in, goes to college. Here comes Ben at quarterback, and now Jaquay Walden replaces Deshaun Cherry at running back. The next man up mentality at Elkins is strong. I'm going to take Elkins.
I agree with you. I think Elkins wins at home against Malvern this week, but I can tell you it's probably the last week I'll be picking Elkins to win. And of course, we need to mention 3A and 4A is in the quarterfinals, so
Yeah.
they'll be playing their semifinals next week.
Yes.
Now, the reason why we're, we mentioned this being Thanksgiving and state playoff semifinal edition. We're into the semifinals in 5A, 6A, and 7A, and we're going to go ahead and pick all 6 of those games and see Farmington. Like you said, Rick, they beat a very good Camden Fairview team last week. Can they beat, and they're at home again, can they beat, again, because of an upset, Hot Springs Lakeside upset Robinson, so Farmington gets to stay at home by being the higher of the 2 seeds. How much does that benefit them going against Hot Springs Lakeside?
I think it benefits them a bunch, and they're really playing well. Man, Tommy Tice has brought the magic to him. He's been in these situations, I don't know, hundreds of times, a bunch of times. He'll get this team ready, and they're really very talented already. And so I'm going to go ahead and pick Farmington.
I think so too. I think they're on a roll right now, and like you said, Coach Tice and the AARP coaching staff has them going, and I think they win as well. The other semifinal? Is there any doubt Parkview over Valley View?
None.
Okay, then we'll go on to 6A,
Yep.
where Shiloh Christian makes the trip to Benton. Shiloh Christian, the number 2 seed, the runner-up out of the West. Benton, the champion out of the East. I think this is the game of the week in Arkansas high school football. Rick, what do you think?
I agree. Benton, I think what they've won like 10. I guess they lost the first game of the year to Bryant. Is that right? And then they've won
Yes.
like 10 in a row. And their coach, what's his name? Used to coach up here at Lincoln.
Brad Harris.
Brad Harris. Man, I love me some Brad Harris. But they've really built a great program down there. Shiloh Christian, they just keep on what they're doing as they move up in classification and everything. But I got to go with Benton and the Brad Harris boys in this one.
And you're right. This is a tough one. Benton's very good. Drew Davis didn't play last week. I think he'll be back this week. Their quarterback, that's just phenomenal. I'm going with Shiloh Christian to go on the road and win because kind of like Boonville going to Fordyce, I don't think that Shiloh Christian is afraid of going on the road, and they don't care what name is on the other jersey. So I think Shiloh Christian, coming up from 5A from the last 2 years, I think they go to Benton and win this playoff game.
Even with the sophomore quarterback.
Absolutely. He's back, he's healthy, and
Yep.
I think he makes the difference. And of course, you've got great Griffin Mason who can run the ball. Ball may be one of the best defensive players in the state. I just think Shiloh Christian has all the ingredients to go on the road and go play for another state championship next week against either Greenwood or Mountain Home. Rick, do you have any doubts about this one?
None.
Me either. I think Greenwood rolls again.
Rolls.
I
Yep.
think the only question is the last time they played was 3 weeks ago. Greenwood won 42-0. I do think Mountain Home scores this time.
So it's 42-7.
I actually put down in the capsule. I actually went 42-14.
Okay.
So that may make the Greenwood defensive guys mad because they've recorded 2 shutouts in a row.
Now, guys, that's nothing against Greenwood. That just shows how, or nothing against Mountain Home. That just shows you how dominant Greenwood has been.
Well, and I think too, rematches always benefit the team that lost the first
Yes.
time. Now, 42-0, obviously, that's a big loss, but I think Mountain Home can go back to that game and look at some different things that maybe they try that may be more successful. And they didn't have their quarterback, their starting quarterback, the last game, so they were very one-dimensional. Their quarterback now, the 6'4" guy that started the season, he can wing it a little bit. So I think that's good enough for maybe a couple of touchdowns.
Okay.
Class 7A. We're going to go ahead and start with PA at Bryant. Rick, do you have any doubts in this one, or can PA hang with Bryant?
I think PA can hang with them for a quarter. No, maybe a half. I was really impressed with PA. I got to tell you, but Bryant, they've been the dominant program in the Arkansas largest classification for 4, 5, 6 years now. Even though Fayetteville won last year, that is really, really a tough assignment. But I think Bryant will win this game. But just for the fans who've been there, I'd like to see a fairly close game if I'm there.
And, of course, it's another rematch, being two teams from the 7A Central. But, yeah, I think Bryant, it's kind of like the Greenwood Mountain Home game. Bryant is, I think, just that good, and they repeat. So, we're pretty sure Bryant's going to play in the championship game. Who are they going to play, Conway or Bentonville?
You know what? I like Bentonville, and I like their story. They started off 0-3. I don't know, maybe say, what's wrong with Bentonville? There's nothing wrong with Bentonville because of the tough schedule they played. So Bentonville is on a roll, playing really well right now, and they got to play really well to beat Conway, especially with Grayson Wilson back. Conway, the coach over there, has got them rolling. Buck James, they are solid. I've seen them before all the way through, probably even too deep. It's not a long way to come up from Conway to Bentonville, but they know how to do it. Buck James knows how to do it. And even though, they're our local team, Bentonville, but I think Conway comes up and wins this game and move on to play Bryant for the state championship.
Yeah, I agree. I've picked since the summer. I picked Bryant and Conway in the state championship game. I see no reason to change at this point, but I do think this is going to be much closer than that non-conference game that these two played back in September. I think it'll be much closer than that game, especially now that they've settled on a quarterback. At that time, they were still trying to play two, Grant and Slepecki, but I think they've settled that. I think it'll be much closer. But again, I think it's going to be Bryant versus Conway before 35,000 people at War Memorial Stadium on Saturday, December the 7th. Well, that's going to wrap up Who You Got. Rick Fires.
I tell you
man,
what,
enjoy your
I'm ready for Thanksgiving. I got my plate here. I got a fork. I got a spoon. And just in case I'm kind of a slob, I got 3 or 4 or 5 napkins here. I got a backup spoon. I got another in case that breaks. I got another backup spoon in case that breaks. So I'm ready to go. We got this over with. Let's go watch some football and eat Thanksgiving dinner.
Rick, I know you're going to enjoy it. So thanks for your time today, and thank you for watching. Enjoy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week when we're down to even fewer teams.